Alright everyone, I'm here with my review of the Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. Because it's the best way to start the Turbo season is with the movie that serves as the pilot, the first part of the Turbo season. So we begin on some distant planet where a being known as Larigo is being hunted by the Piranhatrons, which will be the foot soldiers for the Turbo season. Larigo has come to Earth to find Zordon or something like that, but he can't survive on the sun's rays, so it makes you wonder why he came to Earth in the first place if he can't survive under the sun. So Zordon dispatches Tommy and Kat to go find Larigo. Kat, in the meantime, ends up hurting her leg on that while she's trying to morph into Zeo Ranger 1. Yeah, and Larigo magically heals her leg. Yeah. Also, during all that, Rocky, during a martial arts thing, breaks his back and can't be a ranger no more because Steve Cardenas, of course, hurt himself at the end of Zeo. And the new Blue Ranger is a touch of interesting, but I'll get to that in a minute. So, Zordon then gives the Rangers, calls the Rangers and all that stuff. And while they're teleporting, someone sees them teleporting, which ends up being 12-year-old Justin Stewart, who will become the Blue Ranger. And I guess this is the problem people have with this, is that it's a 12-year-old Power Ranger driving around being a Power Ranger when he's too small to be one and has to grow into his suit. I'll get more into Justin when I do the actual Turbo review, which will be the next video. So, we are also introduced to Divatox. She's the villain of this season.
Stupid.
And she has some helpers. She has her second-in-command, Rygog, and her nephew, Elgar, who is by far the single most annoying villain in the history of the show, even for comic relief.
And Divatox is so stupid because she just freaking...
I'll get into Divatox more in this season 2 when I do that. But Divatox is going to the Nemesis Triangle on the island of Merampheus because she's going to marry a volcano-like creature named Malagor. So Zordon says the Rangers need their new powers to go into the Nemesis Triangle, and it's turbo powers. And their Zords are cars. Yes, cars. Like everyday run-of-the-mill cars. Now, interesting question, people. If the Zeo Crystal continues to grow in strength, like it was said to do in Zeo, why would the Rangers then downgrade themselves by going to cars? For that matter, who created the Zeo powers, the turbo powers? I'm guessing Billy created the turbo powers? That's never really answered. But, yeah. So the Rangers take their turbo powers and they head to the Nemesis Triangle. But also, Divatox has kidnapped Jason and Kimberly, who are back for a surprise, to sacrifice to Malagor. Yeah, I guess they're only in this movie for fan service because they don't do much in this movie. Nor do Bulk and Skull either, so they're kind of wasting this movie too. So, yeah. Essentially, the Rangers then fight off some of these putrid-looking turtle things in the Nemesis Triangle, unmorphed. In fact, a lot of this movie, for being a Power Rangers movie, they're unmorphed a lot of the time. They're only morphed in the last, 10 minutes of the movie, if that. So, I don't really know why this is called a Power Rangers movie when they're unmorphed all the time. But in Turbo, you then get So and all this stuff. Yeah. So, Divatox succeeds in sacrificing Kimberly and Jason to Malagor, and thus turns them evil. Now, I have to say, Evil Kim and Jason are kind of very interesting, because they're kind of like Evil Tommy in some way. But essentially, the Rangers end up being able to break that spell and reverse it. So, and then Malagor grows, so the Rangers have to call on their Turbo Megazord. And they throw Malagor off a cliff, and that destroys them. Interesting thing though, the Malagor costume will be back. It will be back because it's used in Space, but I'll get to that when I do In Space's review. The Turbo Megazord I'll talk about when I do the Turbo season. And basically it ends with Angel Grove winning its kickboxing contest or whatever, which was represented now by Tommy, Adam, and Jason replacing Rocky. The first NPR movie, while cheesy, is actually the better NPR movie story-wise. This is terrible. This does set up the Turbo season, but it's still very, very, very bad and probably never should have been made. And what's really sad is, this is the movie that was not retconned. This is the actual movie that is canon, unlike the first movie, which isn't. The first movie does not exist in the Power Ranger universe, but this movie does, and it should be the other way around. So, yeah, this is a really bad movie, and the only reason I even bothered with it is because it's technically part of Turbo, so I figured I'd talk about it. So, yeah. I'll be back with my Turbo review later. So, thank you for watching. Like this video, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.